All right. Morning. Let me just sure we're good on all the platforms as we get this thing going. Hope everyone had a great weekend. As you see, I'm a little earlier than normal today. I teach, so the kids are on spring break, and as I do always, as I'm always about just getting the work done earlier and earlier, doing what you got to do earlier to get your work done. Get the work done. All right. Facebook, we're all good. Let me check over. You see what we're talking about. Big Domino, the Big Domino today. Let me just check everything to make sure we're good. YouTube. Testing YouTube. Shout out to YouTube. We're back, and pretty sure we're good. And LinkedIn, we're good. All right, cool. All right, good afternoon, good morning, whatever time you may be tuning into this. Hope you had an incredible weekend. Welcome to another Make Your Move Monday kickoff question. What we do over here in the Move Swiftly world every single Monday, we create a thought-provoking question. We have conversation about it. I'll let the article about it that was published was written Saturday, but it was been published just a couple hours ago. I'll let that play, and then we're going to talk about it in terms of what it is, how it can be applied to your business, and what it is it's all about. So before I get into all that, let me just introduce myself to anybody that may be new to my world and get through some announcements. First and foremost, my name is Aswan Crookshank. All right, your one and only Move Swiftly speaker, former Division I college football player, and current 5-time published, soon to be 6-time published author and educator. What I do, what I created, what this whole Move Swiftly brand is all about is taking the lessons that you learn on the football field, particularly the innovative teamwork lessons that you learn on the football field, and aligning them with businesses and business owners. So they have a staff, they have a group of employees, they have a group of people, hungry, motivated people that moves as cohesively and as strong and as productive, has that eagerness, that same hunger as a championship high school or youth football team. That is what we do over here in a nutshell. So before we get into today's topic, which you're going to be talking about, the Big Domino, all right, the Big Domino effect. And then just kind of want to put this in your head before I get started today, is think of back when you were a kid. And to be just like literally a couple of 50 seconds ago, as I was getting prepared for the show, I realized that this is actually a real thing. I'm going to show you guys this real quick as I'm realizing it myself. This is a real thing. There's actually a person out there who has this as a brand, like, Domino Creations, and I guess they hold the record for how many dominoes they could put together and have them fall and all this kind of stuff. Like, there's a person with a real brand behind dominoes. I didn't know this. I just happened to look this up just because I was, looking for examples to show you guys when it comes to this show. But yes, there's actually a person that, has turned this into a business, and I don't know the details, but I really do think she's probably doing very well, because it's something that you don't normally see. Whole YouTube channel, 4 million subscribers. It is a crazy world we live in. It's a crazy world we live in. But yeah, as I was getting prepared for this, I wanted to show you guys the example, and I found this person who's doing some major things in the domino space and coming up with all sorts of creation. So shout out to I guess her name's Hevish5. But yeah, she got a whole brand behind it and doing her thing. And what we're going to be talking about today is just that concept when it comes to business. It's taking that mindset when it comes to business, is what is going to be the thing that if you cut this deal, if you make this deal, if you pursue this particular thing, all of your other problems start going away. All of the things start just falling in place when you make that landmark deal. So we're going to be diving into how to create all of that kind of stuff as we discuss today's Make Your Move Kick-Off question, which is, what is your big domino. What's the big domino that knocks everything else out? All right. So first of all, before we get started, let me just get through a couple of these announcements here. First and foremost, West Palm Beach, West Palm Beach, West Palm Beach. If you are interested in free boxing lessons, I do those every 2 weeks. We're going to be having a session. The next one is coming up this Saturday. That is March 29th, 2025. Just make sure you hit the QR code right there or go to freeboxinglessons.com. No, freeboxinglessons slash make it freeboxinglessons.makeyourmove.com. You can sign up there, or you could simply sign up on the QR code that you see there on the screen. Or you could just contact me if you are interested in doing it. We had a great turnout 2 weeks ago. Looking forward to really building on that and, probably getting back. Once I get a good showing on that, I'll probably get back into doing it with the kids. And, that's kind of where a lot of the stuff I have done in the past, that's where it started, during the COVID time and stuff like that. So where we're getting back into, a lot of people look at me now and think this is just education. No, man, I tell people all the time, I came up in that fitness and that athletic space. I'll show you guys right here. This was this was me, the boxing trainer and all that kind of stuff. So I learned that skill set. It's because there was actually a center director who saw the website it was a point where I was just, training kids on how to box. And there was a center director who saw that website. And that's what got me in the world of education and, being around kids and families and stuff like that. So there's a lot of culture mix, and it's going to go into the discussion today in terms of what are you putting out there? What's on the internet? What's accessible information for everybody to see? That way you're really casting your net wide, and it's almost like the internet is doing a lot of the resume work for you. I want to say resume work, but the internet is actually creating a ongoing resume, like a running resume. Like anytime a person needs a certain thing, they could look up, and just the same way I found this lady, the same way somebody can find you, right? Because I was looking for some examples to illustrate my points today in terms of dominoes. And it just so happens when I look up dominoes, this person shows up. So the question now becomes, again, how are you going to be able to do that with whatever thing is your thing? You see what I'm saying? And that's what we're going to get into today. All right. So again, I got to get through these announcements. I know I keep getting distracted. I'm so excited to have this conversation. So let me just get through. I'm going to get through. All right. Next thing. Business owners, business owners, stand up. I am here to serve you. The Move Swiftly brand is all about serving you all and giving you all the tools, the strategies, the systems that is going to make it so you have a hungry, motivated staff. So what I did is I created something called a free guide .makeyourmove.com. Go to freeguide.makeyourmove.com. Very easy to understand. 10 steps, 10 ways, 10 things that you could be doing right now as we speak that makes it so your business is moving in that cohesive fashion. And again, you want to create an atmosphere, guys. You want to create an atmosphere that makes a lot of these employees that you have, you want to make them uncomfortable. You don't want them having some comfort. You want them very, very uncomfortable because they're so hungry and they want to achieve the desired results so bad. That's what you want. All right. And finally, Patreon. Make sure you tap into the patreon.com/Aswand44. Make sure you tap into that as well. All of that is included right here on makeyourmove.com. One-stop shop for your teamwork and your self-development needs. You could just go shop now. You could join the Patreon and you could book me to speak. Or if you want to just learn more about who this Aswan Crookshank dude is, you can listen to the podcast that has and will remain the number one podcast on innovative teamwork. Again, just like I found this lady here. When it comes to dominoes, anything domino related, she comes up. Anything innovative teamwork related, if it's about innovative teamwork, utilizing the team that you have and figuring out ways to implement systems, and with that staff is really, really motivated, you find that guy. You find that guy when you're talking innovative teamwork. All right, so let's get into this, man. Let's get into the question. I'm gonna let my article, the article that I wrote just this weekend and that officially got published today. on medium.com. I'm going to let that play in a second. But as you're thinking about what the big domino in your business is, I want to make sure I mention this, and I want to make sure I'm on the record saying this as frequently as I possibly can today. You got to think high ticket. Got to focus on high ticket, folks. You got to focus on the things that you feel in your heart of hearts. You feel like you are so good at this thing that you can charge upwards of $25,000 for, that you can charge, that you should be charging so much money that no one person just going to be able to pull out their wallet or pull out a credit card and say, okay, I'm just your casual, your person, the typical person won't be able to afford that thing because you're charging so much. If you're not turning folks away because you're charging too much for a particular service, then you have not dived into the work that you're supposed to be doing yet. You have got to focus on high ticket. This is a high level conversation that we're getting ready to have when it comes to what's the big domino. And this is something that I personally can't necessarily, you're going to hear it in the article, but I'm going to kind of give you a preview here. I can't personally take all the credit for coming up with this question. I actually went and I paid for coaching. I paid to have a business mentor. I paid to have someone, coach me up and tell me all of the holes that he was seeing in my business because he was more established than me. And it was him who brought this question to my attention as I was moving down one path. And then he asks this question, completely changes it, completely changes it. So again, I will ask you all, I will not make actual, but I will make sure I make mention of it. If you really want to get the most out of today's live stream and the most out of today's talk and conversation and really understand what your big domino is going to be in your business, you have got to ask yourself, what's the high ticket offer? What is the thing that I can be offering that I can be, that should be, and I damn sure should be and could be I could be charging, need to be, we'll say it like that. I need to be, should be, whatever words you want to use. What is the thing I need to be offering upwards of 5 figures for? What is the service? What am I so good at that I can charge over 5 figures for it? And I'm just going to focus on that thing. That's where we're going to get to in today's live stream today. So let me let the article play, and then we will go from there. Go.
What's the big domino? Yep, you read that right. What's your big domino? That's the question I'm kicking off this week with. If you're building something, business, brand, movement, you should ask yourself, what's the one big domino that, if knocked over, causes all the others to fall in line? You know what I'm talking about. Remember those long rows of dominoes from childhood, 30 or more set up in a perfect pattern, just waiting for that one satisfying flick? You tip one over and boom, the rest collapse in a beautiful, inevitable chain reaction. As a kid, that was fun. As an adult with bills, responsibilities, and a mission. That's a business lesson hiding in plain sight. Where I got this from. Let me pause here and give credit where it's due. This concept of the big domino was introduced to me by one of my business mentors, Dre Baldwin, during my time in his work on Your Game University. We were brainstorming ideas as we often did, and he asked me this exact question. It stuck. Then recently I dropped a video called Attracting Your Tribe, Watch It Here. The reaction I got confirmed something I already felt. This big domino concept needs a whole week of thought and discussion. So here we are. My first encounter with the domino effect. Let me take you back to when I was 19 years old. I was a direct seller for a company called Cutco Cutlery. You know, the high-end kitchen knives that sales reps use to cut through leather and rope during in-home demos. Yeah, those. I was horrible at selling them, but that season taught me a lot. One day during a phone jam, basically an hour of nonstop calls trying to book demo appointments, I had an idea. Instead of knocking on random doors, why not call someone who already needs knives? So I hit up a family friend who owned Crown Bakery in Washington, D.C. My thinking was simple. If restaurant owners have a budget for kitchen tools, I might as well pitch to them directly. That sale didn't change my income, but it shifted my thinking. It was my first taste of what it feels like to knock over a big domino.
All right, let me pause there. Actually, I'll let it play, and then we'll go.
Big domino. Applying the domino effect today. That kind of thinking still guides me now. I'm an educator, not in the traditional certified by the state sense, but as a multi-published author and speaker, I've carved out a lane where I can add real value to schools and organizations without jumping through the conventional hoops. I leverage my intellectual property to make that happen. Which brings me to the real reason I'm writing this. My Big Domino, play-by-play commentary. My Big Domino today. It's landing a contract with a major sports network to do college football play-by-play commentary. That's why I created the Film Session Saturday channel on YouTube. Check it out. It's my platform to sharpen my skills, grow an audience, and attract the right people who need what I bring to the table. Why is this my big domino? Because once that happens, I'll be in front of more business owners. I can offer corporate workshops built around the powerful teamwork lessons the game of football teaches. I'll keep sharpening my communication and public speaking skills, especially in high-pressure, impromptu environments, which opens doors I can't even see yet. What's your big domino? So I'll ask you again. What's the one deal, opportunity, or moment that if it falls into place, unlocks everything else in your business? Don't just chase tasks, chase your big domino, let it lead the way. Want me to speak to your staff or team?
All right, so I'll cut it there. So there's a couple places we got to go, a couple things we got to say. Again, you can go read the whole thing and dissect it on medium.com. Just follow me there on medium.com, where published at least 3 different articles a week. Once football season comes back around, it'll probably be a lot more, as a lot of my content, a lot of the work I do comes from the football space. So let's start with just how to figure out what the big domino is. All right. How to go to a place, how to even get to a place where you're educating yourself and moving in the direction of this type of thinking. All right. And I want to make sure I'm on the record saying this. You have got to get your ass kicked in the sales game. All right. There's no getting around being a seller and figuring out what your big domino is. All right. You can't, it's not going to be learned through somebody else. It's going to be learned through you. It's going to be learned through an experience, an absolutely rough experience in the sales world. Sales, all right, hardcore sales in the sales world. That's where it's going to start. You cannot expect to figure this thing out if you're not willing to go out and sell something. Sales is the key to figuring out this big domino. So I'm not here to tell you that there's a way of working around sales and okay, I'm going to go and find this specific thing because it's just going to hit me one day because I know this one and I graduated from here and I know that person. I don't give a shit. If you're not going out there and being willing to go out and sell a product, not even a product that you're passionate about, but you got to figure out how to develop a sales mentality and get away from this idea that selling is a bad thing. There's nothing wrong with being a seller. There's nothing wrong with sales. There's nothing wrong with calling people all day, dialing numbers, offering your services, however it is you want to do it. There's nothing wrong with you going through a season where you're doing that, because sales is a force multiplier. All right. Your bottom line, the worst thing that's going to happen to you is somebody's going to tell you no. Big wolf. All right. They're lost, right? Somebody's just going to tell you no. Or the majority of people, right? If you've really been in sales and you're really about it, the majority of people are going to tell you no. It's just how it works. However, those no's that you get, those hardcore rough no's that you get, are going to actually be beneficial to you in the long run. I tell people all the time, I guarantee, it's like, look, if you really want your kid to develop that tough-minded, that resilience, and learning how to deal with adversity, learn to ask themselves some really hard questions about what business they're in and how to figure things out, you get them out there selling a certain product. See, the problem is with a lot of adults who get started in business too late is they do everything in their power to bounce around and dance around having to sell anything. Right? They decide they're going to spend the money on the fancy websites and fancy t-shirts, some slogans, and a bunch of little business cards, a bunch of stuff that'll just make it so it looks like you're in business, but you're really not, because you're avoiding having to actually do the work you need to do, which is doing the work in sales. So I got into it from, like I mentioned in the article, and I didn't bring this up, but I want to make sure I give you some context here, is when I started selling those kitchen knives, that was the start of something, a chain of events that absolutely was so incredibly necessary for my growth and development in business. Didn't realize it was the beginning of me stacking up dominoes, right? I didn't realize that just doing that thing was the beginning of it. In fact, I remember what happened was I was, again, in this football bubble. I went to Carson Newman my freshman year and I ended up tearing my ACL after my second semester there. So that summer, I knew I had to move back home to Maryland and enroll to some community college. And when I tell you, I hit the ground running. I hit the ground running looking for a job because I was raised in a Caribbean household. I have an older sister who's had a job since she was 15 years old. So she kind of set a standard in the household in terms of what it is we need to be doing between the Caribbean parents I was raised by and my older sister. It was like, look, you either going to have a job or you're going to be into playing school, or you're going to be into playing sports and going to school or going to college and all that. Those were the options. It wasn't just me going to be just chilling, living off my parents and all that. That option was not there. It just wasn't there. It wasn't something that I could even consider, especially seeing that, when I tore my ACL, a lot of the academic work and the things that I should have been doing in high school, the opportunities that I should have been taking advantage of academically in high school, I started to feel the grunt of that and realize, man, I missed out and didn't put my best foot forward when it comes to my academics. A lot of the things that my father was warning me about, it all happened when my ACL was torn. So lesson learned, 19 years old, lesson learned, right? So because I again grew up with a father in the household and he ran his own business and he was doing, he, at least from the perception, again, the son looking at a father every single day, he's, going to his office and running his own thing and building out his own business. I never really was intimidated by the idea of sales. I was never intimidated by the idea of, going and meeting someone and trying to sell them a product. Again, my father would take me in meetings where he was him. I remember we were in a damn bowling alley at one point. He was taking meetings at bowling. He was going wherever the client needed to meet him, the paying client. He was going wherever he needed to meet that person and all that kind of stuff, right? So what happened was I was giving out my resume everywhere. Like I'm looking at sporting goods places. I'm just looking for wherever. I was particularly looking at places that are in the athletics, fitness world and stuff like that to work because, again, football player. I wanted to go back and play, and I wanted to, get my knee right and all that kind of stuff. I just had surgery. So I was looking at all sorts of places, and then I finally got a call back from Cutco Cutlery. Let me pull them up so you guys get a visual here. Oh man, Cutco Vector Marketing. Yeah, we'll pull them up. Here it is, baby. This was it. Cutco Cutlery, boy. Yeah, that was the experience. Look at it. So this is how they track you. This is how they actually track you. Until you get to the job interview, you don't even know that it's actually kitchen knives. You have no idea. Like, I guess the parent company is something called Vector. Yeah, this is it. This is the parent company. So Vector Marketing is what actually is the parent company of what they do. See, so this is the offer. So just this process in itself taught me so much in business. So this is the offer that they give a lot of, especially college kids and all that. So they pull them in as Vector Marketing. And me, again, sports guy, I'm like, okay, I could do some marketing. I could do my thing or whatever. And then when they pull you into the training, that's when you realize, holy shit, we're actually going to be trying to go and sell kitchen knives and all that kind of stuff or whatever it is, right? So I'm all excited. I'm like, yeah, I actually called my sister. I'm like, yo, sis, I got a job, man. Because they all saw me when I was back and, I'm giving out my resume. It's like, yeah, man, I got an offer, man. I'm about to be working. I'm about to be doing my thing or whatever. And then I told my sister the company and my sister's like, oh, okay, yeah, I've heard of them. I've heard of them. And she knew, but she didn't want to tell me what the real was because I was so excited about having a job, first job, yada, 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 all that kind of stuff. So I remember it got mentioned. So the training lasts for 3 days. And I remember I'll never forget the girl. I think it was Kim, if I'm not mistaken, was the manager or one of the higher ups. And I remember her saying while we were in the training that, just the training in itself. Let's say you guys, she was talking to us as potential sellers and all that. She was like, just the training in itself is going to help you all later on in life build out things, because you're going to be seeing things from a different perspective. That if you really look at the 3-day training that you guys are on when it comes to how to sell these kitchen knives, learning the script, learning how to book appointments, learning how to get in the home and make presentations, all that stuff, the training is going to be beneficial to y'all. So she was 100% accurate, 100% right when she said that, because it didn't matter everything I've done from that point. So much of what I learned in that 3-day training was like, okay, I like this, knowing the script. Even when it comes to these live streams, you hear me every single day figure out how to introduce myself, make my announcements, give you guys a little preview about what to expect. Then after I get through the announcements, then I get into the topics. And then if there's an article or something like that I want to play for you guys, if there's little clips, if there's certain things that I want to play for you guys, I leave myself options. I give myself options to do that, or I can make sure I'm talking to you directly. However you want to do it, we can do it. Again, all of this stuff, all of the flexibility came from that training, right? That training and learning what I needed to do. Because say what you want about selling these kitchen knives, the girl who was teaching us how to do it, she was paid. She was paid. Listen to me. She was paid, mama. She was paid, bro. She was out there stepping. I mean, you could tell. She just looked like she had cash. Money, I mean, the shoes, everything. She was paid. And she was like, and she wasn't shy about it either, bro. Like she would tell us, I remember during one of those phone jams that I was talking about, and I was asking her, how did you stay motivated? Because again, I had a rough time selling the kitchen knives and all that, but I was asking her how she stays motivated to do it. Like she had us to do the phone jams, and then she had to do the trainings, and then she had to do a lot. There was a lot on her plate, and then she looks at me and she goes, "Look, if you saw my paycheck, you would see exactly why I do it." It's like, okay. Now, again, I'm 19. I'm wet behind it. This is my first time not playing football and all that. So this whole new working world was just new to me. It was just brand new to me. And again, even though the knife selling business was not successful in terms of profit, in terms of numbers, in terms of how many knives I actually sold, the type of thinking and the educating myself on the type of thinking is what has been able to, again, create. I'll show you guys right here. Create, make your move, Transferring D1, the six-figure athlete, books that I've written that I could use as leverage as I continue to develop and grow in the educator space, in the public speaking space, in the intellectual property space. All of that is stemming from that 3-day training, right? Be patient here, because I'm getting to a point where I want you guys to understand finding the big domino, understanding what the big domino is in your business and locking in on that big domino. It takes a sales experience that is absolutely rough. All right. So I was one of those that did it my way. All right. I did not do it the correct way when it comes to Cutco and how I did. I was going literally door to door, knocking on people's door. I remember there was one lady, I knocked on her door and she had kids that were sleeping, and she, slammed the door in my face. And there was one dude who I was like, "Yo, man, you want to buy these kitchen knives? I have these kitchen knives here. You want to buy them?" And he goes, "Yeah, not interested." Slammed the door right in my face. All sorts of things. I was caught. And then, so again, like I spoke about in the article, it was during one of those phone jams where we spend an hour, collecting leads and all that kind of stuff. And, the leads that we actually, so part of the presentation is to, give the presentation of the knives. And, we ask the person that lets us in the home, we ask them if they can give us certain numbers, like certain recommendations of people that we're able to call. So once we gather up all those leads, we go to the office at the time, the office was somewhere in Rockville, Maryland, like the city of Rockville and all that. And we would just spend a whole hour dialing numbers, trying to get book demos, book appointments, and all that kind of stuff, right? So it was during one of those times where I was just striking out, man. I was striking out in the home. I was striking out in terms of getting leads. I just could not get it right. And then boom, the light bulb hit. So we have a friend of the family. Shout out to Trevor. Trevor and his wife, they've been owning a bakery, a Trini style bakery. Family's from Trinidad and Tobago, by the way. But they've been owning this place called Crown Bakery for years, right there in DC. And that was the day I left Cutco, because I had discovered something. Even like mentally, I checked out of Cutco and vector marketing, because I discovered something from that call, making that call, and then seeing him in person and realizing, as great as the idea is in terms of selling kitchen knives and, selling your own stuff, there has to be a strategic way in which you go about selling your product or whatever product. And first of all, you got to believe in the product, you got to love the product, you got to love it and really genuinely believe that it's something that everybody needs. But when you figure that part out, when you figure that piece out, then it has to be an element to you where you have some exclusivity to it. All right. Because I remember, and this was the cool thing about it. This is where being from Trinidad and having Trini friends and being in the Caribbean, the way we just move, you know what I'm saying? This is why you got to love my Caribbean people in terms of the way we move, because there were several friends of the family in which I would call and give this presentation to. So first one was a friend. It was a female. She lived by herself. And I remember going to her and showing her the knife. She goes, "Oh, yes, that is good thing, boy. That's these sharp knife. That's the nice thing, boy. That's quality knife and thing, boy. That is good stuff." So now she looks through the knives and she goes, like, she loves them, but they're pricey. It's like she's calling all her friends. She goes, "Listen now, I have a friend of the family as well. You remember? That's Nielsen. And he's selling these knives, but gosh, they're pricey. But all he need is someone to sit and look at them, and then he go get him money." And that. So there was a period there where she just gives me a bunch of names, and when they got calls from the folks, and I'm probably telling on myself when I say this, when they got calls from the folks, they just have to say, "Yeah, as one came, showed the knives, and I got my little $17 or whatever, and this, that, and the third." So obviously that's not very moral, not ethical, why I didn't last with the company. But in terms of just how she was helping out, it taught me something as I was doing these phone jams, right? So as I mentioned in the article, we're in the middle of a phone jam, and I'm thinking of who can I call that, or who do I know who's in my search? Just everyone. I mean, the list, the Rolodex list, it's everything. I've called everyone, and I'm thinking, who am I going to call that would actually be interested in some knives, some kitchen knives? Who the hell could I call? And that's when I thought about Trevor, who owned it. Like I said, owned something called Crown Bakery, owned a restaurant named Crown Bakery in DC. And whenever there was a major event, we would always go to Crown Bakery. We'd watch the Soca Warriors there. When Barack Obama got elected in office, we went there to go watch him. I mean, that's the lineman spot. That's the spot we line. Crown Bakery was the spot. And knowing that it's a bakery where they cook food and all that, I was like, oh, I'll call Trevor because he has to put, silverware and kitchen knives and all that stuff. He has to put it in his budget, right? So call him. I'm like, "Yo, Trevor," and I forgot about the whole script. The script just went out the window at that point. And I'm calling him. I'm trying to remind him who I was. I'm like, "Yeah, Nielsen, yeah. And he's busy. Who this? I'm like, yeah, it's me. Now, come on. So I'm like, "Yo, I'm selling these kitchen knives, man. I know you run the Crown Bakery. I want to make sure we come through and, I'll show you what's up. And, it's the best things on the market. This, that, I'm really, selling it or whatever." He goes, yeah. Just come through. And so we never had the meeting. We never actually, ended up meeting or whatever. But it was when I saw him the next time, I was still sort of in it, somewhat. I had already found another job, but I was still sort of in it, not in it, kind of, sort of. And it was me, my dad, and Trevor. And then Trevor realized, "Yeah, you was the one that called me about the kitchen knives." And he was telling me how it's the company been called. It's one of those solicitors for him and this, that, and the third and all that kind of stuff. And, that's kind of how that situation ended up. But here's where the lesson comes from. Again, Jay-Z famously said, even in defeat, there's a valuable lesson learned, so it evens up for me. Let me say that one again. For I will not lose. For even in defeat, there's a valuable lesson learned, so it evens it up for me. And that's the mentality. Even in a loss, even if you lose a sale, lose a girl, lose whatever, there's a valuable lesson learned, and allow that lesson to even it up for you. Sometimes you lose, sometimes you learn. Never waste a great mistake. Learn from it, 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 folks. Learn from the mistake, all right? Learn from whatever the loss may have been. Yes, Aswan didn't get the sale when it comes to the kitchen knives. Yes, Aswan didn't necessarily make much money, really any money at all. I mean, I remember I was traveling all over damn Maryland trying to sell these knives on a few. I remember selling one, it was one set to one of the, shout out to Miss Mia. She was the team mom for my youth football team, and she bought a set. And then I remember I forgot something at her house. So I made it back to Silver Spring. Then I realized I forgot something. So I had to drive all the way back to Laurel. And then she's like, look, there go your $17 right there. $17. The $17 that you just made from driving to do for doing the in-home interview, which I did. Okay. That $17 that you made, you just spent it because you forgot something at my house, and now you have to come back. There go your $17 in gas. I remember she bought some. My linebackers coach from high school, remember he bought a little set for his wife. There was another mother that I had met. But I knew from playing a good counsel, and she sat down and bought some knives and all that. So it was a time. It was a time, and I had to empty it all out. But anyway, when I had the revelation or the idea to say, why am I spending all this time, money, gas? I mean, driving all over Maryland trying to set up these in-home interviews. And I was in it. Let me tell you, I was in it. I could bring my dad on, I could bring my sister on, I could bring my mother on, anyone that knew me during those times. I was in it. I was like calling whoever. I remember when I went back to see Coach Bryant with my youth team, the White Oak Warriors. He is like, you still selling those kitchen knives now? You still selling them things? What's up? I was like, nah, man, I'm out the knife selling business. I ain't really with that no more like that, So again, I know there's a long-winded way of me saying you got to get your ass in sales. All right, you got to go out and sell something if you're gonna figure out what your big domino actually is. All right, so let's transition. Let me fast forward to 19. So I was 19 then. I'm gonna fast forward about 10 years later, probably around 10 years later, where 29. No. Probably longer. Yeah, a little COVID time. So I'm 30, 31, 33 years old. And I decide to humble myself. I humbled myself and I said, you know what? I love what a guy, I'm going to pull him up here because I'm always talking about him. It was during COVID, and this was when Clubhouse was a major thing. And I just happened to jump into a room where my guy, man, one of my online mentors, online visionary, his name is Dre Baldwin. And when you look at his brand, you look at what he's doing, I had just put my first book out. The man has written 40 books. He's a former basketball player that, has written, again, I'm from the DMV, and when it comes to basketball, is what we do. The man has written over 40 books, and he's been like literally on doing, and I remember actually being a part of his university. He used to sell knives for Cutco too, and all that kind of stuff. So this is where it becomes really, really crucial and he's actually one of the ones I've learned the concept of making sure you're charging high ticket, focusing on high ticket and only high ticket in terms of how you go about your business as an entrepreneur. All right. Focus on the people that are paying upwards of 5 figures for whatever it is you're offering. He is the one that really taught me how to think like that. Right. And it took me taking the money that I was earning and paying him to coach me up on my business. And again, I can get a lot of different ideas, and ideas can come to me, and I start thinking like this, and I start moving. It's just part of being an entrepreneur, right? It's part of having this kind of thinking where you believe something's really going to work. And just like I believed that I was going to make a good amount of money doing these Cutco knives because they had sold me on how to sell it. And I'm like, yo, that's easy, bro. You know, you just taking the knife and you cutting the rope and cutting the leather, and I'm about to cook with this shit, bitch. I'm about to get paid, dog. Like, that was me. I was really thinking like that. But again, that's because of the entrepreneurial mindset. You know, as entrepreneurs, we lie to ourselves all the time. So you need other entrepreneurs in your circle that's going to give you that hardcore. It's not going to work, Aswan. It's not you. It ain't going to be you. You need that if you're going to excel. So again, I'm saying all that to make sure you understand. You got to go out, and I'll dive deeper into this tomorrow when we talk about Top 5 Tuesday, top 5 ways to attract your tribe. But just in terms of thinking and figuring out how you're going to find your big domino, first and foremost, you got to pay for somebody to coach your idea, coach your ass really, really harshly, give you some harsh critiques about what you're going to be doing in business. Because I remember it was one of the programs. I joined several of his programs. And there were times in which it was just me and him on the Zoom call. It was the Work on Your Game Live, where it was just me, him, and there was another, and I think it's Antoinette was there too. It was only 3 of us or whatever. Bottom line is, me and Dre had a lot of one-on-one dialogue. And there was a conversation. I think it was an idea I might have had. I think I had this idea of running something called a Move Swiftly marathon. I was thinking about doing like a Move Swiftly membership. I was thinking about doing all sorts of things. And one of the things that I do give him a ton of credit for in terms of his ability to listen to an idea and break it down in terms of what is the goal, what is the focus, how you're going to get the result, how you're going to do a lot of these different things. He asked me this direct question. He goes, he didn't. It wasn't a matter of him asking me it. It was a matter of him actually saying it in a response to an idea I had. And then it turned into, a big domino. What's going to be the big domino? It might have been something where he asked me directly. For the sake of this, we'll just say he asked me directly. He's what's the big domino gonna be to your business? Because you, as the creator, the founder, the CEO, the entrepreneur, the person, the star, the business, again, the face of the whole thing, if you put your focus on something that's small ticket, let's say I put my focus on just selling one of these a day, great, $25. That's gonna get me some gas. That's gonna fill up my tank. Right. And not to mention, I got to give a portion to Amazon for the sale, because I'm self-published. That's not going to move the needle. Right. If I put my focus on literally just selling one of these, then it's a problem. Now, if I put my focus on selling about 100 of these per college, per program, for wholesale, and making it so it's reoccurring to every freshman that decides to come in and want to play football, every walk on, and I look to connect it. Okay, that's high ticket. That's the person you need to be talking to. You don't need to be talking to the one athlete that might want to read this. You need to be talking to the conference director that can distribute a whole deal of bulk orders that will get 1, 2, and 3, right? They get all of these and make sure they all get distributed to every single incoming freshman that comes in and it applies for this and does this and does that and does all the things. So now you have what we call bulk orders. And then the big domino would be, okay, I'm working with that conference director who has the responsibility of keeping a budget, of keeping a certain thing in place, and making sure that sponsorship dollars are coming in, making sure alumni are excited, making sure that people are showing up to games, making sure that the fans are there, making sure that the school is. You see the difference in terms of when you work directly with the one person who also has a similar audience, also has a similar responsibilities and similar obligations that you have. then there's a connection that could be made, as opposed to looking at one athlete and saying, hey, I think you might like this book here, and I'm selling it for $25. Great. You may have, your ego might get boosted with the sale, or you might feel a shot of dopamine because you finally got one sale or whatever. But that sale isn't really doing anything. It's doing absolutely nothing. And very rarely is that one person even actually going to read the book. Now, again, if you're talking directly to a conference director that can line up speaking opportunities for you to be a speaker at certain events, they can, again, put the book orders on regular, make the book orders like a bulk order, make it so a bunch of staff is looking at it and kind of figuring out what you do, turning them onto your brand, making sure you're being introduced to the fan base, making sure you're getting a platform to do other speaking opportunities, do some consulting contract with certain parts of the university, making sure you might even get in a situation where they can line up a class that you can teach with certain professors. All of that stuff happens because of the one person that you went after versus you just trying to sell your book, to one individual that is, that you might meet at a table setup. And I'll close you out with this example, because just not this weekend, but the previous weekend, it was me and my girl. We were at a park, and we were approached by another author. Who was literally, she was taking her book. She had just put out a book. Again, it was crazy because she reminded me so much of myself when I first got into the author game. She asked me to. I was like, well, I told her this, and she was like, you should have gave her some advice. And I was like, man, I'm right now, my mind's kind of shut off and all that. But she was, and I knew this story would actually come up at some point. But she was basically going up to every single person every parent that she saw at the park. And she's asking every parent, hey, do you want to buy my book? Do you want to buy my book? Do you want to buy my book? And I remember telling my girl, I was like, look, see, she's just doing it. She's heart's in the right place, obviously, because she has IP and she wants to sell her stuff. But what she should be focusing on is, how do I create bulk orders? How do I go to a center? How do I go to a school, an elementary school, a preschool, a daycare, talk to that talk to that center director and saying, this is what my books are all about. Who's the person that I got to contact that is going to make it so the books are being distributed, and what kind of deals can we cut there? That is the big domino. That is how you got to figure it out. You got to figure out what that domino is going to be that's going to knock everything down, so you don't have to spin your wheels trying to get, little small ticket sales here and there. Because let's play the whole thing out. Let's really play it out. Let's be 100% honest. Let's say that me and her decided, all right, let's say I decided, hey, I'm going to buy this book that you're selling me directly at the park. I'm going to spend $15 on it. What the hell is that $15 going to do for her? Seriously, in being 100% honest, what is the $15 going to do for that girl? Not a fucking thing, right? Not a thing, not a damn thing. The $15 ain't going to do shit. It's going to just boost your ego, and you're just going to be excited at the fact that you got a sale. When I first put out Swiftly, I was getting a ton of those. And yeah, my ego was boosted. I felt good. I remember I actually posted about it. There was a whole box of books at this gym that I was working at named 9 Round that were just flying off the shelves over again. Didn't move the needle. None of that shit mattered. It didn't matter because nobody was taking the book and actually utilizing and using the principles that were in the book. When I realized, all right, it's my job to now put my IP and put my intellect, put the work, put all the things I'm doing, put it around a certain person so I can really build out a solid platform to where I can now bring in folks and teach them the same system. That's how business is done. That's how that's the benefits of thinking in terms of what is the big domino going to be. So again, 36 years old now. I've been around the block quite a bit, as you can hear. I just gave you a snippet of some of my sales experience today, and have not even scratched the surface. Just understand that. But I'll tell you this now. The big domino. Let me put this back up. Because I talked about it a little bit. What we do here is what we do, especially on the Mondays, is I make sure whenever I ask a question like this, I make sure I give my answer so you guys can use my story and the things I do as an example for you guys to figure out what it is your situation is going to be, whatever the question is. So seeing that the question today is, what's your big domino? It's a requirement of me to answer the question so you guys understand, hey, I'm not just talking, I'm actually living it. All right. So I answered it in an article, I answer it again here. My personal big domino is for me to become a play-by-play commentator for college football. All right. And here are the reasons. This is, again, one of the reasons that I created this thing called Film Session Saturday, which, by the way, we're going to be tackling the Clemson and SMU ACC championship this weekend, this Saturday. We're going to be jumping into that. Last weekend, we finished out the Penn State, Ohio State game. As you can see here, we did Texas, Georgia. We did Ohio State, Oregon. We did Alabama, Georgia. We did the Super Bowl, all of that. Film Session Saturday. Make sure you subscribe to that if you have not. But it's, again, as you can see, breaking down the entire game of football, not just what the quarterback does, which is what they like to do with the mainstream media. All right. So seeing that and understanding that, my big dominoes for me to be doing that, because number one, it gets me in front of what? More of the business owners that I'm always talking about, serving and building out a team, or building out a system, or teaching them how to use the Move Swiftly system to make sure their staff is continuing to be motivated. Their staff is very hungry, very eager, very productive, and they don't have a staff that has this country club atmosphere where they feel like they're tenured in and they're just good because their salary. You don't want that environment. You don't want that energy in your business. You want a staff that is very much like that team that's very, very competitive, right? So it gets me in front of more business. That's one of the biggest issues I have right now, is just getting in front of more business owners. When I am a play-by-play commentator, that's what we have to do. That's pretty much what you're doing as a play-by-play commentator. You're explaining the game in a way that the casual fan can understand. You're breaking down the game in a way that a casual fan can understand, and you're appealing to sponsors. You're dealing more with the sponsors and the advertisers and all that kind of stuff. So again, it just gets me in front of more business owners. Number two, again, one and two are pretty much the same answer, because I can offer more of the workshops for these business owners based on how well I'm articulating myself. And then number three, again, the same reason I started doing these lives regularly, sharpening my communication skills, sharpening my public speaking skills, sharpening my ability to speak in an impromptu fashion, which is what needs to happen every day, every single day. I mean, you're not getting there. It's just like what I was telling you when it comes to the sales thing. If you want to be influencer, if you want to have a level of influence over anybody, anything, your communication skills have to be on point. They have to be absolutely on point, and you have to be working at it over and over again. And it has to have an extreme level of authenticity. Understand this, and I'll close you out with this. All right. In today's world, this digital world that we've created, everything is virtual. Everyone, not just you or me, everyone is starving for genuine people, genuine conversation, and authenticity. And if I'm going to be in that world where I'm constantly doing it, it's important for me to continue to practice and continue to sharpen my communication, public speaking skills, especially in high pressure, impromptu environments, which doors open, things open. People see that on you, see that, they feel that energy, they feel that opportunity, and they start to engage in you. They want to work with you. All right. That I'll close you out with that, because that's probably going to be a topic in itself. It's going to take me a whole lot longer to explain that in itself. As far as what we talked about today, basically the main thing you got to ask yourself is, number one, what would be the big domino in my life or in my business? And how am I going to think more in terms of focusing on high ticket and making sure I'm asking myself, what am I so good at? What am I an expert at? What do I know beyond knowing? What do I know that I can charge upwards of 5 figures for? And how am I going to go about doing that? What are the steps and what are the processes and the systems that I could put in place in order for me to start doing that? All right. So all that being said, as always, it's been a pleasure, man. This was a great start to the week. Again, I'm putting the website up here for you one more time. Main thing to check out, it's makeyourmove.com. That's YAMOVE.com. One-stop shop for all your teamwork and your self-development needs. As you can see, you can shop, you can join the Patreon, you can book me to speak, and you can listen to the #1 podcast on innovative teamwork named the Move Swiftly podcast, hosted by yours truly. All right. Everyone out there, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.